This video, I'm going to show you how to plant a dwarf Fuji apple tree. The reason I tend to pick dwarf fruit trees is because they grow at half the height and half the width of a standard tree, and so they're perfect for backyard planting. Like all other fruit trees, it's required that you dig a hole twice as wide and as deep as the pot. As recommended, the soil should be half native, half amendment. In this case, I'm going to use peat moss, as apple trees tend to like a soil that has more acidity. The very first step is to put the pot down on the ground and trace around it, again, twice as wide as the pot. Just a side note, when handling any dwarf fruit trees, you want to grab the tree by the knuckle as not to cause additional stress on the tree itself. Once you start digging up the soil, you're going to want to separate any large rocks from the soil itself. Again, this soil will be used to replant the Fuji apple tree. This apple tree does like a well-drained soil. It has a hardness of negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and you should be spacing these about 10 feet apart. Fuji apple trees do have pollination requirements. To ensure fruiting, you want to plant with a second apple variety such as Gala, Liberty, Jonathan, Granny Smith, or Red or Golden Delicious apple. Now I'm going to use peat moss and mix this in with the soil. Again, you just want to use about 50% peat moss, 50% native soil. You want to mix it, and the key here is to make sure it's well mixed. Again, just make sure that you keep any large rocks outside of the mixture. Now, if you recall, the requirement was to dig a hole twice as wide and twice as deep for this Fuji apple tree. Now we're going to take this 50-50 mixture, that is 50% of native soil and 50% peat moss as the base for planting our tree. What I forgot to mention earlier is that just as equally as important as digging a hole twice as wide and twice as deep is selecting a part of your yard that gets full sunlight. Apple trees, much like all other fruit trees, will thrive in full sun. This is a step that you don't want to skip, and it's extremely important that the native soil be mixed in with the peat moss, and when you're done, it should look something like this. The next step is to fit the root ball from the apple tree to the hole you just dug. And to remove the tree from the pot, all you want to do is lightly tap all around the pot. And then again, grab the tree by the knuckle and pull it out. Once you take the apple tree out of the pot, next thing you want to do is level it by putting it in the hole. If the hole is deep enough, then you could take the tree, take the root ball of the apple tree, and then what you want to do is basically just loosen it up. Loosen the roots up a little bit. Notice that I'm loosening the root ball on top of the hole I just dug, and that's to allow any of the fertilizer on the root ball to fall into the hole so we can reuse it for planting purposes. Again, this is what it should look like. Once you have it in the ground, it should be level to the ground. Once the tree is level to the ground, the next step is just to basically set it up to where it's pointing upright and it's appeasing to the eye. Next, you're going to backfill using the existing dirt. Again, you want to pull any large rocks to the side And again, use the native dirt to fill in around the tree. Once you have backfilled it, you're going to lightly step all around the tree, the perimeter of the root ball. And you're going to just lightly press down to make sure that the root ball itself is making good contact with the ground. Again, you want to use this opportunity to make sure your dwarf Fuji apple tree is standing upright from all directions. And check every angle to make sure that it's appeasing to the eye. Once you're happy with the way it looks, you're going to continue to backfill using the native soil. And again, you're going to lightly press down with your foot on the soil so that the tree makes good contact with the ground. Once done, you can take whatever remnants are left in the bucket and put it around the base of the tree. This is rich in nutrients such as fertilizer, and it's got a little bit of mulch. Spread it around evenly. Next step is something I do when planting any fruit tree, and that is I build a well using the native soil. This allows a tree to capture and retain more of the rainfall. This is a simple process, and all you are doing is building a well, which is a circle perimeter around the tree. When you're building a well around the tree, you're going to want to pat it down and compact it so that when it does rain, it doesn't wash away any part of the well. Again, a very simple process, but something that's important in planting for success. This is what your well should look like when you're done. You're going to want to rake around the well, get rid of any loose rocks, leaves, any other debris that's around your tree. I have a lot of planting videos on YouTube, and one of the frequent questions I get a lot is, why do I plant dwarf trees, or what do I like them? If you have a small backyard, these make sense. They're half the size of a standard tree, and you get enough yield to feed you and your family. The last step in completing the well is mulching around the base of your tree. Now, it's recommended you use about 3 inches of mulch. In this case, I'm using cedar mulch around the base of my tree. There's no need to go overboard on this step. And very importantly, in any dwarf trees, you want to keep the mulch below the knuckle. When you're done planting your apple tree, it should look something like this, where it's standing upright. It's got the mulch below the knuckle. It's got its well around to retain the water. And again, any rocks that you have, large rocks, put them aside. Do not put them back into the hole, as they prevent the roots from expanding. You can see I have a number of other fruit trees in the yard, including some apple trees, so that they cross-pollinate with this Fuji apple tree I just planted. I have used this process to plant a number of fruit trees in the past with great success, and they range from apple to pear to plum to peach trees. I know some folks have different ways of doing it. This is the way I've been doing it for years, and it's, again, worked without fail.
Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.